joining us on our masterclass. We're very excited to have you.
Thanks, Verity.
I spoke with Julie yesterday, and I'm just, what you're offering is just so needed, as we were talking about in the group. And I'm so interested to hear what you have to say, because it's like we were just saying, it's so hard sometimes, always being with your partner, working in the business, feeling like you're kind of thrown in, it's just like, there's a lot of dynamic changes when you're living together, working together in a relationships most of the time, raising kids together. It's a lot, isn't it? And I think, Julie, like you were saying on the phone yesterday, it's like one thing is off and it kind of trickles through into the business. If your relationship's not right, there's something going on, your business knows that. So
absolutely.
So it's there's a lot to learn, a lot to juggle. Julie is the author of Dynamic Duos, which I have here. I told you yesterday, you'd probably see it on my shelf. Grabbed it off. Excellent book. And actually yesterday I asked Julie if she would be our next book club contributor. So we're going to be reading this in the book club. If you're not in it, we'll leave the link in the group a bit later on. But we're all going to go through the book because I think it's going to be a goodie. I've been meaning to read it for a little bit now. So so I'm very excited. So yes, whenever you're ready, Julie.
Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep, can see it now.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning. And obviously, thank you so much, Verity, for having me on the Tradie Wives webinar for the Business Masterclass. So a little bit about me. I've been business consulting since 2006. I'm an author. I started my first business. So as a business owner, I started my first business at the age of 24. And then went back later on and did a degree in business just so I could get the piece of paper. So I've done a fair few things, but, really, it is what it is. I also am co-founder of Crest Point Psychology and Crest Point Wellbeing Centre. So I went in more as a business coach, life coach. And what I found is that 9 times out of 10, if there's a problem inside the business, it's coming from the headspace of the owner. They're not watching, they're not thinking, they're not doing, they don't understand. And so this is where I started to distill out a lot of my own information around what's this thing called life all about? How does that work? Because it wasn't working for a lot of people. It wasn't working for me as well. So my first business and relationship probably almost killed me. I was left burnt out, emotionally exhausted, financially destitute. I was just absolutely gutted and destroyed as an individual. So I knew there had to be a better way of doing things. So I started on that journey of self-development, personal development. If I can't help somebody else, I have to be able to help myself first. And this is where I started to look at, what do I know about me? And what have I been taught about life, and how does that apply to the things that I've got or the things that I know about the world? And then I realized we've actually been taught back to front. Bizarrely enough, we've actually been taught round the wrong way. Now, let me explain. So I don't know about a lot of you, but I was brought up hearing the saying, life's not meant to be easy. And so I was raised with this, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, so I must have to struggle to be on the right track. And so we actually are programmed in the background to struggle because we're taught life's not meant to be easy. And then I stopped and I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, hang on a minute, what if I've been taught wrong? What if life is meant to be easy? I'm making it difficult for myself. So that opened up a whole range of possibilities. What am I doing to make my life difficult when I don't really need to? And that's an interesting question, because not a lot of people actually ask themselves that. Myth number 2, which I often talk about as well, is that we're taught to, love others, treat others as you want to be treated, etc., etc. But if you look at the picture about the jug filling the cup, if you give everything of yourself to somebody else and they're full, everything else you give them is just going to fall into the ground. It's going to be an overflow, and it's going to be wasted. And you'll get to a point where you're exhausted and you'll go, okay, well, it's my turn. Can you fill me up? And they've got this little cup and they tip it back into the jug, and you're going, hang on a minute, where's the rest of it? Because I gave you all of this and I've only got a little bit back. So we're actually taught back to front. We're taught that if you love somebody, they'll give the love back to you. Instead, I try and show people how to fill their own jug first. So if I filled my jug and my jug was overflowing, then I can fill 100 cups and never be left empty myself. So it's kind of a little bit of a shift in thinking around some of the things that we do as a pattern of behavior. I call it pattern of behavior because we do it by default and we don't actually recognize that maybe we're going around it back to front, if that makes sense. So I started on this journey of trying to understand or have a greater understanding about how to make life easier for not only for myself, but for other people around me as well, and that's where I started to bring out the information which is in the book. So the book was published the book was published in 2018. So it's been out for a couple of years now. And it's taken this time to kind of put some extra tools around it to be able to provide a platform. And because I'm very passionate about men's mental health and supporting the guys who probably don't talk as much as they should, and particularly around the trades, because it's a high-risk industry, I felt it important to focus on tradies and tradie wives and couples in business together to help them have the information and the tools and the skills to be able to support each other, learn and grow, and find that success and happiness, not only in their relationship, but then that will also transpire into their business as well. So I've kind of come through with this real deep care, empathy. I guess it's a pain for me because I don't like seeing people who are suffering. And so hence why I'm here. So in this webinar, I'd like to be able to share with you some of the things that I found that would make life easier for me, and for my partner and for my family and for the people that I've been able to help as well. So my clients, and even just my friends and people that I associate with. So one of the things in the book that I talk about is the foundations to living, and they're very simple. It starts off with understanding the rules of the game, I suppose. Sorry, am I going too fast?
No, totally fine.
Perfect, excellent.
Totally fine. Keeping up.
Excellent. And I hope that, because obviously I can't see how many people are online, but I hope that this is valuable information for you. So in the book, I talk about the foundations to living, and I'll go through those. There's only 5 of them, but they're very simple, and it's common sense stuff. It's things that you probably would sit there and go, oh yeah, I kind of understand that. I get that. You know, that makes sense to me. And then the book of becoming a dynamic duo, going from where you are now, wherever that is in your relationship and your business, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling trapped, you're feeling undervalued, you're feeling, you know, stuck, exhausted, burnt out. You know, there's a whole range of things that we go through as a couple in business, in the relationship, and taking that through the 5 C's, you know, clarity and commitment, and obviously we need effective communication in there as well. And I talk about that journey for not only the building of a strong foundation in your relationship, but then how does that transpire into a set of structures and frameworks for great teamwork and great passion together about a vision to grow your future. You know, I mean, the business will provide everything that you'll need for your family, and feed your kids and send them to a good school, and, you know, take you guys on a holiday, and all these wonderful things that we really want. And what happens is we go into the business and we kind of get stuck in that rut of going around and around and around the mundane, the drudgery, the frustrations, you know, all the client stresses and all the paperwork stresses and the bills rack up, and, you know, all those sorts of things. So I take us through those C's, the clarity and the commitment, communication, cooperation, collaboration in the dynamic duos process. Now, here's some interesting things, because there's some myths that we have. Again, we've been taught back to front. And a lot of us feel that if we work harder, it'll fix the problem. And quite often it doesn't. Sometimes we look at our partner and go, well, if you were like this, or if you did this, or if you were a different type of person, I need you to do that, but you're not able to, or, you know, why aren't you supporting me in the way that I need it? So we'll just sack the partner. That doesn't fix the problem either. You know, another myth is, you know, we try and fight the system. I talk to my partner about often, you know, bashing the brick wall. You know, there's rules, there's regulations, there's structures, there's frameworks, and sometimes we want to break out of that, because that freedom can be elusive, and the system can be very constricting in certain areas, and we try and fight it. So that myth doesn't work either. And quite often we talk about also, well, what is there? We give up hope, and that's when you know, we feel those impacts of depression and anxiety and stress, and you know, how do we get out of these things? The only way is to pull the pin. Let's shut the business down. Let's sack all the staff, or, you know, heaven forbid we get to an extreme sense where somebody says, look, the only way is to really pull the pin, and we don't want that. So we're going to talk about some of the problems for couples in business together, and we talk about you know, the feeling trapped, the patterns that we fall into, the triggers around how do we actually identify what the core issue is, and therefore resolve it, rather than putting out fires all the time. I think that for a lot of us, we feel that we're the only ones that can do it. So we feel that if we hire somebody, it's not going to be good enough, or it's all right, the relationship's, here's another one, the relationship's strong enough, we'll focus on the business, right? We lose the respect for each other in that process around, I'm doing this, which is more important than what you're doing. Again, another problem for couples in business together. My way's the right way, your way's the wrong way, you know. I'm doing it because I had more experience than you in this area, or something like that. So there's, you know, and we could just pick the top 5 and talk about those, but what it comes down to is actually understanding the point and the purpose to why we're in business together. And that comes around clarity. And I talk about, there's I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Tony Robbins, a motivational speaker. Yeah, very famous over in America in the late 80s and 90s, and he's making a huge comeback now. You know, he tells a story, Tony Robbins tells a story about going to learn to play golf. So he hires a golf pro, and he's out on the fairway the very first day, and he's smashing it. He's on track, and he's, yeah, rah, rah, great work, you know. The next day he gets up and he goes out onto the golf course, and he hits the ball and it goes off into the bushes. And then he hits another one and it goes off into the water. And then he hits another one and it's off into the sandpit. And he turns to the golf pro and he says, "Golf pro, what the hell, dude? Yesterday I'm on track. Yesterday I'm right on track towards the fairway, and now I'm all over the place, and I'm off into the rough and I'm off into the water." The golf pro looks at him and he says, 1 millimeter, Tony. 1 millimeter here on the ball has a vastly different outcome when you're going several hundred yards down the track. So sometimes our life might seem like it's going off track, and yet there could be just a 1 millimeter shift in thinking that could get us onto our target, that can get our life smooth, that can get our life a lot easier and happier than we currently have it. And so I talk to my clients and I help support them, and I share with them and show them how that 1 millimeter shift in thinking can make a massive difference and relieve a hell of a lot of stress out of our lives, just 1 millimeter thinking. So how does that work? And this is where clarity comes into it. So I tell a story about a jigsaw puzzle. Now imagine I give you a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle right in front of you. What do you do first? Tip it out of the box, turn all the pieces up the right way, find the edgy bits, find the corners. Have you done one before? Jigsaw puzzle? Love them. Some people hate them. If I say to some clients, I say, "I'll give you a jigsaw puzzle," and they go, "Oh, please don't. Please throw it away. Just put it in the bin right now. I don't want to have anything to do with it." But if you had to do a jigsaw puzzle, right, you'd start with the edgy bits, and then you'd group the colours together and you pick up the pieces and you'd look at it. But what did you forget? The picture on the front of the box, right? You have to match the piece with where the picture is on the front of the box before you can put it in the puzzle, because the picture on the front of the box gives you the greater perspective. Now, if this jigsaw puzzle was a metaphor for your life, what's the picture on the front of your box looking like? Most people don't stop and look at it. Most people are too busy doing. They don't actually step back and look at, what do I want? What do I like? What would I like to see in front of me of my life? But here's the problem. Someone's come in the middle of the night and taken 100 pieces out of your jigsaw puzzle box. What happens? You can't finish your puzzle because it's going to have holes in it. Now, someone else has come in the middle of the night and put 100 pieces of their puzzle into your box, mixed it all around and gone, "Off you go, you go and do that jigsaw puzzle." And you're going, "But it doesn't even look like my picture. I don't even want, it's not even my piece." So what do you do with that? What do you do with it? Give it back, right? Give it back. That's your piece of the puzzle. Love you lots, Mum. Love you lots, Dad. Sorry, brother, but that's your problem, your piece of the puzzle. Take that and, excuse my language, but nick off. The problem is nobody realizes that they're allowed to give the piece back. That does not belong to you, right? Especially when we're carrying so much, we're overwhelmed. We've got expectations here, we've got obligations there, we've got these people giving their 2 cents worth, and so-and-so's putting their pennies worth in to tell you how you should run your life and how you should run your business. And hang on a minute, that's not me. That's not what I want. I want this. This is my puzzle. Because what you've got in front of you, 1,000 piece jigsaw puzzle for you, that's enough for one lifetime. Most people in business have been through enough shit, they've been through enough trauma, they've been through enough problems, they've had a shitty childhood, they've been through enough bad experience in life to deal with their own stuff, let alone trying to make somebody else happy, okay? So you need to be able to very clearly and very concisely go, this is not my piece of the puzzle. I love you lots, Mum, but that's a you problem. How do I know it's your problem? Because you're angry and I'm not, right? This is how we identify. And this is what I show people and teach people, how to actually identify which pieces of the puzzle belong to them and which don't, right? So we'll go into the foundations to living, because this is the grounding. If we don't understand the rules of the game, it makes it very difficult for us to play. So we all know gravity exists. If I was to take a cup and drop it from a height and it smashes on the ground, I don't yell at the ground for smashing the cup, right? Because I know gravity exists. So if that's a fundamental rule to living, what are some of the other ones that we haven't been taught? We all want the same 2 things. Now, this might be a very simplified version of life, and I'm just going to get myself a little bit more comfortable here. But I've spoken to a lot of people and I've worked with a lot of clients, and what I found in my business owners in their staff is that essentially to keep staff happy is an important thing, right? Obviously not at the sacrifice of yourself, but in general, if we were to keep staff happy, they'd be pretty good with that. But if you kept staff happy but didn't give them any mental stimulation, after a while they'll get really bored and they'll go, oh, I really need a challenge, right? So they'd go and apply for a job that's probably better than the skills that they've got so they could learn something, right? If they're learning something in the job but they're not happy because you're mean and nasty and they're grumpy and whatever and they're just not happy, they'll take all those skills and then they'll leave and they'll go and find somewhere where they can apply those skills and be happy. So as I'm consulting with clients, I'm going, you know what? Every human being is the same. We all just want to be happy. At the end of the day, we're all just looking to be happy. But happiness will represent different things to different people at different times. You know, somebody might say, I'll be happy when I get a new car, or I'll be happy when I fix that client, or I'll be happy when I finish my course, or I'll be happy if I had more spare time, or if I had kids or I didn't have kids, or what, do you know what I mean? Like, we all want different things at different times, but essentially we're looking to be happy. That's why we do the stuff we do, right? And in that, if we're not happy, generally we end up going, you know, this is so frustrating because we're not learning out of it. We don't understand why we're in an experience. And an experience, you know, will just follow the same pathway. It'll have a beginning, middle, and an end. And this is probably going a little bit off track, a little bit deeper to where I wanted to go today. But if we understand the process of an experience follows the same pattern, then we can get the maximum information out of that experience as we can, and minimize the damage or the pain or the hurt or the bad part at the end, you know. So if we actually recognize we all want the same 2 things, we all just want to be happy and we all need to learn and grow. Just a fundamental rule. And everything we do will come back to those sorts of things. Here's another one that's interesting. Like gravity, there's a law of balance. Okay. So I'll tell the story. Normally I tell the story about when I was a kid, we had a grandfather clock. And one of my jobs was to wind the grandfather clock up. So I'd be pulling the weights up to the top, and then I'd pull the pendulum, and the pendulum would swing. The greater the force I put on one side, the law of balance says it's got to go equal and opposite, right? It's just the way life goes. It's about understanding that process. How does that apply in real life? Well, okay. Government says wear a mask. No. Yes. No. Yes. No. The greater the force we put on one side, the greater the force has to go equal and opposite. The more the government locked us down during COVID, the more there were people rioting in the streets, not staying at home. So why is that? It's because there has to be a law of balance, right? Real life examples. I had a client come in, actually I had a customer come in one day, 20 odd years ago. I was running a coffee shop, and she came in, she was really grumpy at me. She's like, and I said, are you okay? And she went, no, I'm not. You see, she's gone out of balance in one way. And I said to her, it's okay, you know, like, how can I help you? It wasn't until she said it out loud, no, I'm not okay, that we both realized at the same time, it's not a me problem, it's a her problem. She was out of balance at the time. And this is our emotional triggers. So our emotional triggers will pull us out of balance. Another example, everyone saw Will Smith get up and slap Chris Rock across the face when he said something about his wife. That's an emotional trigger. That's a bang, I'm angry at you, slap. Okay, so he's gone out of balance in one direction. 15 minutes later, he's on stage crying, oh, I'm sorry to all my fans and friends. There he's gone swing completely opposite, because it's the law of balance. We have to understand how this always applies. In our relationship, we have to understand that we are opposites in certain areas. He wants to save money, she wants to spend money. He wants to spend money, she wants to save money, right? These are the things that will happen. She's very conservative, he's very outgoing. She's very talkative, he's very quiet. She wants to go out, he wants to stay at home. We have this law of balance, and the greater the force on one side, the greater the force will be equal and opposite. And hence we'll have this disagreement that'll get worse and worse and worse unless we recognize this is just the law of balance at play, okay? Equal and opposite force, okay? So this is things we can apply, recognize that in our relationships straight away. That's why we have arguments. You see what I mean? So we have to recognize when one person is out of balance. How do we know when we're out of balance? Because it's an emotional trigger. We will feel angry. We will react. We will respond emotionally. We will be sad. You know, physiologically, every human being's the same. When I'm happy, I laugh. I bet when Verity happy, she laughs. When you're happy, you laugh. When you're sad, you cry. Guess what? When I'm sad, I cry too. Physiologically, we're all exactly the same. What makes us different are our triggers. We might look at the same thing. One person might be angry, another person might laugh, someone might be sad, someone else might be like, meh, makes no difference to me. So it's our triggers that are different. So if we can understand the triggers are what pulls us out of balance, then we can say, I'm out of balance, I'm not okay. Okay, we can't force somebody else to be happy if they don't want to be happy. So we're recognizing, and I know this is kind of getting a bit deep and a bit serious, but we've got to recognize when we are not okay and go, this is a me trigger. This is a me issue. Let me fix me, right? And I run a podcast called 15 Minutes to Change Your Life, where I teach you how to disarm your triggers in 15 minutes or less. Okay. Oh, did no one tell you could do that? This is the thing. We haven't been taught that you can disarm your triggers in 15 minutes or less so that they're gone forever. right? So they don't keep coming back and repeating and going around and around in circles, different situations, same stuff, you know. This is really important stuff for us to be able to move forward, for us to be able to build our relationship rather than erode away at the relationship. Here's another one. Let's go around one of the other 5 C's that we have in the dynamic duos, and that's around cooperation. Okay, we all have different views of the intersection. This is another fundamental rule, like gravity, like the law of balance. Everyone's got a different point of view. There is no actual right and wrong. So if you can imagine there's a massive car accident in the middle of this intersection right here, and there's a person on each of the 4 corners, and one police officer says and interviews the first person and says, what did you see? And then he goes to the second person, what did you see? Third person, fourth person, etc., etc. And the first person says, oh, I know exactly what happened with this accident. There was a cat that ran across and this guy came here and no. Suddenly there's an accident. And the police officer goes to the next 3 people and the guy across the opposite corner says, I swear on my life, there was no cat. Who's right? Nobody. Who's wrong? Nobody. We just have a different view of the intersection. So if we can recognize this, you'll have a view of the way to do business. Your partner will have a view of the way to do business, and it may be totally opposite. But you're looking at the same intersection from different angles, okay? With my husband, he would be very much, I want to go and give as much as I can to the customer. I'm going, no, you can't give as much as you can to the customer because we need to make money. Oh, but they can't afford it, but we can't afford it. So we're trying to achieve the same objective, but we have different approaches to doing that and to achieving that outcome. No one person is right or wrong. We're just different, okay? And once we understand that there are different points of view, and rather than saying, no, you have to see my side of the intersection. No, you have to see my side of the intersection. Instead of trying to force each other to say, you come to my side because this is the right way, we have to respect that we all see things differently. Once we recognize that, we can then start to work on our cooperation. Okay, I talk about teamwork, which is kind of a little bit of a funny story. Everyone knows how to have a shower, right? I know it seems a little bit bizarre, but let's use this as an example. So we all know how to have a shower. We know what's involved. We get our undressed, we hop in the shower, we turn the water on, we soap our body, we wash it off, we turn the water off, we get out of the shower, we pick up the towel, we dry ourselves off, we get dressed, hence the problem, hence the whole task of actually having a shower is complete. So what is teamwork? Teamwork is understanding what needs to be done. Okay, say for example, we're going to have a shower. So we know the process start to finish, what's required to have a shower. Okay, now if we need to work with our partner, which is cooperation, which is teamwork, which is what we have to do in business, let's make it really simple. When your partner is in the shower and he turns the water off, you know what the next step is, right? He has to get out to get the towel to dry himself, right? Would you stand in front of the doorway so he can't get out? No, you wouldn't. You'd know to step back so that he can open the door of the shower and step out and grab the towel and start drying himself so he can move to the next stage, right? This is all teamwork is in business. We have to understand the process start to finish. Then we have to anticipate the next steps. Then we have to effect a smooth transition. So we're both in the bathroom, hubby's in the shower, he turns the water off. I think to myself, right, I know he needs a towel, he's got to dry himself, he's got to get out. So I'll grab the towel, I'll step back so he's got room to come out and I'll hand him the towel. That's anticipating the next steps and ensuring a smooth transition. He goes, oh, thanks, honey. You're wonderful, you read my mind. No, this is teamwork. This is cooperation, okay? The problem comes in when I don't know what the next step of the task is. He might be working on the car and I have no idea what he's going to do next. So I don't know what tools to hand him. I don't know he's going to move to the right side and I stand in the way. I don't want to be there and he trips over me and he gets all upset and frustrated with me. These are all different things because we both don't have a full understanding of the entire process start to finish. And therefore I can't anticipate the next steps and therefore I can't affect a smooth transition. So when we're in business together, when it comes to cooperating together in the business, we both need to know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done so that we can ensure that smooth transition, so that I can hand him, honey, here's all the paid invoices. Honey, these are all the job sheets that need to be invoiced for the next day. You know, all of these things comes down to effective communication, okay? There's no point in us getting angry at our partner if they don't know what needs to be done next. And so what happens is if that communication breaks down, our relationship starts to fail. Our relationship starts to become difficult and challenging. And then that transitions across to the business because we can't even work together in the kitchen, let alone work together in the office. Do you see what I'm saying? So these are all very important. They're simple rules of foundations to living, but they're very applicable when it comes to being a dynamic duo. And if we understand, no, you haven't done this because I needed that here, we haven't obviously fallen apart in the cooperation side. We don't have clarity around what needs to be done and how it needs to be done and why we're here and all those sorts of things, who we are as a person, what do we want first. All of these things come into the foundations as well. Here's another one. Look, everybody's got a box of springs. We call it baggage. And so what I do is I explain to people, well, you know, what happens in life, this is what I've found myself personally, as well as seeing it in other people, is imagine you pick up a clicky pen and you pull it apart and inside there's a little spring that allows the ink to go in and out of the pen. And imagine every single thing that you've ever heard, felt, seen, done, thought, experienced, lived through is all a spring and it goes into this box. Imagine a cigar box or a tissue box and there's a lid on it. We've got our hand on top of this box and there are springs going in and springs and springs and springs and springs. And we get to, I don't know, 30, 40 maybe. And there's a fair few springs in there and there's a lot of pressure building up underneath the lid. And we've got our hand on it. In fact, you know what? By this time, we've probably got our foot on top of the box as well. And we're sitting on top of it going, don't let those springs out. Oh my God, I can't let those springs out. You know why? What's going to happen if you let your hand off the box? Choo! Thousands of freaking springs all over the floor. And we feel like we've lost control of our shit, right? Two good things come out of that. One, you got an empty box, right? No more baggage, in theory. The second thing is because the springs are all over the floor, you can pick them up one by one and decide which springs you actually want back in your box. You might look at a spring and go, oh, that's that ugly lamp that Aunt Mavis gave me last. Oh, let's get rid of that one. We don't need that. Oh, that was that stupid random comment from that lady down the street the other day. No, don't want that. Don't put those things back in your box. It starts to get you clarity around your priorities. What's important to you? Oh, this spring belongs to my kids. Yeah, definitely want those. Well, maybe not that child, but this child I do want. We'll put that one back in the box. This is my husband. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me just test that. We'll put that to one side. I'll come back to that one. This is my dog. I want that. This is my plants. I want that. This is my lounge room. I definitely want that one. Do you know what I mean? These are things we can choose what goes back in the box. Okay. And if we're not sure, we just put it to one side for a little bit until we do know. Don't put something back because you feel obligated to, okay? Because that's what got us into trouble in the first place. This is another jigsaw puzzle analogy, if you wanted to call it that. the difficulty is that people go, I'm at breaking point, I'm at bursting point, and I need to deal with this. So they'll lift their hand off the lid a little bit and try and pull one spring out. The problem is they're all intertwined with each other, because if we've had 30 or 40 years, you know, some people are really strong people, really good character, strong characters, get to 50 and 60 before they start to realize there's a lot of pressure there, right? Don't. You can't lift the lid and pull one spring out because they're all intertwined. I was having a conversation about face masks with my housemate. Next minute, we're talking about Hitler invading Poland in 1940. No, like, dude, really, these are all intertwined springs. You can't, this is why conversations and arguments we'll have with you and your partner, and shit will come out from 10 years ago that you go, I've forgotten about, why are you bringing that up now? And suddenly you've gone on this tangent because all the springs are intertwined. You have to let your hand off the box. We have to start with an empty box. We have to be able to have springs all over the floor and pick and choose as we need to. Now, what does that mean in reality? Most people, when they hit rock bottom, know what this feels like. They do, okay? And it's okay. It's what we term as reverting to functional, okay? I remember having a conversation with my partner one time about, the day that Greece went bankrupt. I think everybody remembers that. If you're over the age of 30, we all went, oh my God, a whole country has gone back. You know, this is not just one, this is an entire country went bankrupt overnight. And they just sort of went, holy mac. And I looked at him and I said, I smiled and I said, so what happens the next day? The sun comes up, doesn't it? Of course. And if you're in Greece and you were living there and the country went bankrupt, what do you do the next day? I don't know. Same as I did yesterday. Yeah, get up and go to work. That's what they did. And the next day, the sun shone, whatever. They get up, they go to work, they eat some food, they have a shower, they go to sleep, kiss their wife, kiss their partner, kiss their kids, whatever. These are the things we try and overanalyze stuff instead of keeping it simple, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't want stress, do we? We like to keep things simple. We like to make it easy. And this is what we don't realize. We've been taught wrong. We've been programmed. Life's not meant to be easy. In fact, we will look for stuff to make life difficult to justify us being on the right track. It's crazy what we do to ourselves. Okay, so we really need to make life simple and get back to the basics. Let's get back to the foundations. Let's get back to gravity. Let's get back to the fact that we all just want to be happy. We all need to learn and grow. We need to be better than we were the day before. We need to feel like we've achieved something, right? These are the human core fundamentals that drive us as individuals. Here's one of the other foundations. Well, this is the fifth foundation to living, which I've worked on. And this is, again, this is common sense stuff. They call it the law of attraction. Everyone's heard of the book, The Secret. What we focus on grows. Okay, so I realized that if I started to look at the negatives in my partner, guess what I'm going to see more of? Negatives. Oh, he didn't do this and he left the toilet seat up and he squeezed the tube and he wasn't here and he didn't do da. We will see more negatives if that's what we're looking at, because what we focus on grows, okay? It's like when you go to buy a new car and you think, oh, I'm going to buy that Audi A3, and then suddenly you start seeing them everywhere. I want to buy a Toyota RAV4. Oh, look, there's a Toyota. Oh, look, there's a Toyota. Do you know what I mean? We start seeing it everywhere because it's actually based in science. Reticular activated memory, if you want to call it that. It is what we focus on grows. It's top of mind awareness, okay? So sometimes, and I'm not saying blindly follow all the positives and go, oh my God, I'm ignoring the negatives in my partner. He's just God's gift and I worship the ground he walks on, because that again is out of balance, isn't it? Law of balance. The greater the force on one side, got to go equal and opposite. So I'm giving a speech at the Chamber of Commerce recently, and I go, what you focus on grows. And one guy at the back of the room goes, yeah, except our bloody taxes. If I ignore that shit, it still grows. And I went, good on you there, mate. Again, more balance. If we push things away, if we ignore it, it's going to come and hit us in the back of the head when we least expect it. So we have to understand these are all like gravity. It will play out all the time, no matter what we do. Okay. So let's start looking at some positives. That's why psychologists get you to do a gratitude journal, to start looking at, for those people who are depressed, start looking at, you know, what are the good things you have in life and what do you appreciate more and things like that. If you're angry and you listen to angry music, guess what it's going to do more of? Make you angry. So if you're angry, focus on some calming music. If you're sad, focus on some happy music. Do things that show you how to move forward in a happier way, in a better way, in an easier way. So hopefully this information's been helpful so far. And what I want to be able to do is actually make that into how does it apply in reality, okay? Because at the end of the day, all of this is wonderful, you know, theory, but what does that mean in real life for us? What happens is our business takes over. We get so consumed on the problems that are going on in the business, we want to fix them, that sometimes our relationship gets neglected. So we want to be able to keep the romance alive. How do we do that? What's the secret to love? Here's an interesting question. What is your relationship really like? How deep is it? How strong is it? How connected are you around who you are as an individual and who your partner is and how you fit together? We want to make sure that we're valued. We want to make sure that we're heard. We want to make sure that we're respected. But to do that, we've often got to give that. And quite often we don't give it to ourselves, let alone giving it to somebody else, right? So how do we keep this romance alive? You know, I was actually working with a client that was in a real estate business, and I was asked to go in and chat with one of his senior managers, and the senior manager turned around and says, "Oh, it's a thankless task." And I went, "That's a very interesting statement." I said, "Do you realize what you've just done then?" And he said, "No." And I said, "You've identified it's a thankless task. So why don't you thank your staff? Why don't you thank your team?" Oh, never thought of that. Most people are too busy wondering what they're not getting to actually be able to give it. Now, I've spent a couple of years as founder of Crest Point Psychology and Wellbeing Centre, and having an opportunity to see multiple clients, especially relationships around couples in business together, around tradies and their wives. And I've seen some amazing changes, some amazing growth, some amazing journeys in that. And just the most amazing people, just really wonderful people. And I'll share a couple of stories with you because I think it's quite applicable. I had this guy phone up once. Let's call him Tom, right? That's not his real name, by the way. So Tom phones up and he goes, "Look, my girlfriend or my wife says it's over unless I talk to somebody." And I went, "Okay, well, why don't you come in and we'll have a chat?" And he said, "Look, I don't know why, I'm just insanely jealous over the ridiculous things and I just can't seem to, you know, shake it. It really is driving me and my partner apart," right? In fact, she took off the rings and she threw them at me the other day and she won't put them back on again. And I'm really upset because I love her, right? And, you know, and she was stunning and, you know, he was pretty average looking, but she loved him anyway. And that was fantastic. The problem is that his jealousy, he was seeing things that weren't there. So I looked at him and I smiled and I said, "No worries." I said to him, it just kind of blurted out. I said, "Don't worry, I can fix you in 5 sessions." And he looks at me, he gives me this weird look, right? He's like, oh, okay, all right. So we get to the third session and we've been talking about a few things. And this is where I go in that, 15 minutes to change your life, which is going to be actually my next book after Dynamic Duos. I'm just creating some content around that and putting some structure and some frameworks around that. But essentially the information's there. So we got to the third session and I walked him through a couple of strategies and some steps. And next minute he kind of looks at me and he's like, huh, okay, I see. We got to the fourth session and I said, how are things going? And he says, it's fantastic. I can't believe it. My wife put the wedding rings back on. We're back in the same bed. We're loving each other. It's really great. I can't believe it. This is my dream. And I went, I'm really pleased, Tom. I said, I'm really happy for you. And he said, Julie, I said to him, I told you I'd fix you in 5 sessions. He said, Julie, when you said that to me, I didn't believe you. I said, yeah, I know. I actually, we got 3 sessions into it and we got to the core of the issue. And this is about disarming the triggers, the things that pull us out of balance, that make us create stuff on our minds that's not really there, that makes us go down weird fanciful tangents that aren't really applicable, that actually start to erode away at the relationship. So that was just one example. And he was super happy. Anyway, about a year later, he messages me and he says, I urgently need to see you. Can I come and see you first thing Monday morning? I said, sure, not a problem. And I wasn't expecting him to contact me back because, he was all good. He came in the next day and I said, oh, what's happening? What's going on for you? And he said, oh, my best mate had a heart attack on the weekend and passed away. So I just needed to talk to you. And I said, great. So we had a session, we talked it over and that was all good. Anyway, another year passes by. He comes back and he goes, Julie, I need to see you sometime in the next week or 2. And I said, okay. So we caught up and I said, what's happening? And he said, everything's great. I said, okay. So why are you here? And he said, well, my girlfriend's been seeing a therapist for 5 years and she can't understand why I don't need to see one anymore. So I said, okay. So he said he promised her to keep her happy. He would check in with me and that was fine. And so we just sat around and chatted about nothing for an hour, just so that he could say that he'd gone back to therapy and satisfy his partner. And that was all good. I haven't heard from him since. But the point is that we can work through emotional triggers that are destroying or eroding the relationship. We can fix those. They don't need to be a problem in your relationship. Sometimes it could be something as simple as I said, we need to feel heard. We need to feel respected. We need to feel valued in the relationship. And there are some real nifty tools that can be applied within 5 to 10 minutes, maybe, that can make a massive impact on keeping that romance alive. So there is a secret to it, right? And it's based in science as well. So, there's a whole lot of information around there. Happy to share that with you on another podcast because it's kind of diverging into something else. But what we want to be able to do is ask for you, what's the most important thing for you right now? What's going on in your relationship? Are you having difficulty with challenging conversations? A lot of people don't like confrontation, and yet we don't understand how and why confrontation happens and what is the best way to deal with it, handle it, understand it, embrace it, and actually work with it so that it's not confrontation, it's actually learning and growing. So challenging conversations, but help us to open up and learn how to grow. Managing the conflict at work and home, again, different versions, different views of the intersection. Disarming emotional triggers, again, out of balance. How do we know separating the pieces of the puzzle, right? So the difficulty in relationships, because his puzzle looks like my puzzle because I'm in his puzzle and he's in my puzzle and we've both got the kids. So there's parts of his jigsaw puzzle that look like parts of my jigsaw puzzle. I'm too busy doing his jigsaw puzzle for him because he's not doing it, and then I don't do my jigsaw puzzle. Do you see where the conflict comes in? Do you see where it becomes really messy? So we have to separate the pieces. It looks like mine, but it's kind of almost, but not. Okay, how do I know it's a you problem? Because you're angry, I'm not. You're upset, I'm not. Do you see what I mean? These are ways that we can clearly identify what's my issue. I'll deal with my shit, you deal with your shit, and we'll work on helping each other, right? How do we set non-negotiables and boundaries, right? Here's a funny thing. So I've got 2 daughters, right? And my 7-year-old, this is going back 20 odd years ago, because she's now nearly 30, 28, 29. So my 7-year-old comes to me and she goes, Mum, I want this. And I went, no, because it's easier just to say no as a parent. Is it just shut up and go, just leave me alone, because I've got so much other stuff on my mind. No. And she says to me, why not, Mummy? Hang on. Let me think about that. I had to stop and think, when she challenged me, why can't she do something? I had to give her a good reason. I can't remember. Did I say no yesterday? Was it yes yesterday? Do I have certain conditions? So I had to throw out my rule book and I go, I've got to set some clear non-negotiables. So I thought about it for a bit and I came back the next day and I said, okay, girls, 2 girls, come on, new rules. Mummy's only got 2 rules now, just 2, because I can't remember any more than 2. 2's enough, right? My brain's full. Always tell me the truth and always respect me. And apart from that, the answer is yes. As long as you come to me and tell me the truth respectfully, I'm going to allow you to learn and grow and experience. And I can't take the pain away from you. So action, consequence. If you do this and you get hurt, I can be there to kind of help and support, but I can't take that lesson away from you, because then I'm robbing you of the opportunity to learn resilience, to be functional, to grow up and be aware and self-directed leadership and all those other wonderful skills, capable and skilled and intelligent and experienced. So you don't want to take the lesson away from your kids or your partner, right? But you have to be able to set the boundaries to say, I just need to be respected and be told the truth, and I'm good in my forest, okay? And I'll talk about the forest in a little bit. So we want to be able to apply all these things in real life. We need to be able to seek balance through support and counsellors, and sometimes having a third party look at it and go, ask some questions. It's just about asking questions. Why do you do this? How do you see that? Why do you want that? And then we can teach our kids about for their future relationships. And we all want these things on the side too. So as a business consultant, focusing on couples in business together, I give a money back guarantee. You know, I hand on heart, 100%, lay all the money on the table. If you don't learn anything, if you don't gain any value, look, you know, I'm happy to give you your money back. Those are my contact details. And there'll be a link at the end that you can actually sign up for some free resources and things like that. I mentioned briefly about a forest because this is our own personal space. And a lot of us as tradie wives, you know, when we're out looking after everybody else in the family, the hubby and the kids and all the family and the friends and all that sort of stuff, and we come back to our own space, what does that look like for us? What are we doing to look after ourselves, right? Sometimes it gets dark, sometimes it gets lonely, sometimes it gets a bit scary, but we need to be able to find the light within ourselves, find the way to fill our own jug, right? Without having to get it from somebody else, without having to, you know, play games or you know, steal away some time or whatever. Filling your own jug first. We can teach you how to do that too. I've got some tools around relationship builder ideas. Here's a couple that I thought I might share with you. If you're looking for ways to reignite that passion, so looking to have some beautiful time with your hubby, learn something about your country together, your history together, learn something about each other, learn a secret. You can create your own as well. Spend some time without technology and just sit and, you know, share stories, share hopes and dreams. Find a place you haven't been together and explore all the ideas that you'd like to do. Look into space and discuss thoughts and beliefs and, you know, core values or principles around things, and not to argue about it, but just to understand the other person's point of view. Take a cooking class or create a gourmet barbecue together. You know, do something different. Look at the lights. Go for a walk, you know, something. There's a whole lot of different ideas that you can do to share. And it's about opening up new and different conversations, because communication is the one thing that'll bind all of this together for you, whether it be in your personal relationship, in the family life, with your extended family. You know, oh, your mother said this to me on the weekend, or my mother-in-law does blah, 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 whatever. Let's have those open conversations. So communication and effective communication is one of the things that we're going to work on in some workshops. And that'll build not only your personal relationship, your extended family, but also your working relationship as well. Look, I've gone through some really interesting experiences, and I'm deeply honoured to share some of those experiences with my clients. I've had people who have lived in townships where they've lost hundreds of people in the township, in a small town, due to fires. I've had people who have been gang raped. I've had people who have called me saying, and this is particularly one tradie, we'll call him Rod, that's not his real name, but he called me one morning and he says, I really need to talk to someone today. And I said, sure, come on in. I'll do a free introduction session. We'll sit down and find out what's going on, and we'll work out the best way to help you. His wife was away on business at the time in Sydney, and he came into the office, and I said to him, look, after asking him some general questions around what was going on, I said, look, as a duty of care, I need to ask, have you had recent thoughts or currently have thoughts of ending your life? He said, yes, this morning. You know, and he had 3 beautiful kids, beautiful wife who loved him dearly. And this guy is a tradie and he just wanted to end it all. And he's been having those regular thoughts. So I sat with him and we talked about some of the foundations. We talked about giving his jigsaw puzzle pieces back, you know, stuff that he was trying to do to please other people all the time at the sacrifice of his own happiness. I gave him some of those foundations to living and some of those tools and strategies. To literally, after the first session, we did 2 more sessions, and he was over the moon happy. He had gone from on a scale, I do a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is deeply, deeply depressed and 10 is extremely happy, beyond any happiness level that you've ever had before. He'd gone from a level 2 out of 10 happiness to a 7 out of 10 happiness in 3 sessions. And I was just blown away, and I was actually teared up because he was such a beautiful human being on the inside, and he got to a point where he was so unhappy in life, he just wanted to end it. Another situation, I was running some mental health professionals workshop meetings for the MHPN network, and we had Judith Murray, who's a very experienced psychologist. She was giving a training session for mental health professionals on suicide bereavement, and I put a sign out the front of the office, and this lady came up about 3/4 of the way through the session. She comes up and she goes, can anyone join in? And I said, of course, please come on in, have some lunch, have a cup of tea. And she sat down and she just burst into tears, and she said, I'd separated from my ex last year, and he went missing 7 weeks ago, and the day before yesterday they'd found him hanging from a tree in the middle of the bush. He didn't want anyone to find him, and it was 7 weeks he'd been missing. And she had to explain to her 2 teenage children, 12 and 14, what had actually gone on, but she didn't want to tell them how they found him because it was pretty bad. And I do apologise if this is raising some issues, which is why I've got this slide on. Please reach out if you or someone you know you feel may be at risk of ending their life or self-harm or anything. Please get help urgently, get professional help urgently. These are the numbers. They are very, very important to reach out, at least talk to somebody. There is an easier way of living. There is a better way of living. And I hope that this webinar has been able to share that with you. I sound emotional now, and you probably can't see my face, but I am very emotional because I'm very passionate about this subject. We don't want to lose our men. We don't. So please reach out. On a happy note, we've got some effective communication workshops. We've got some free resources. I also want to offer a free initial consultation by phone for anyone, because this is obviously Australia-wide. I've got a tradie special. So if you go to effectivesolutions.com.au/tradie wives special, you'll see some information there about what we can offer. I deeply want to say thank you so much to Verity and the team at the Tradie Wives Business Academy. Thank you to the platform. Thank you to the Facebook platform with 19,000 members plus and growing all the time. I think it's a wonderful way to share knowledge, skills and experience, supporting each other. I've seen some of the posts that have been going through, and I know there's a lot of people in a lot of pain out there. Let's stop that. Let's fix it. Let's help. Let's support everything around that, because that is truly one area where we really want people to live, survive, thrive, and be happy. This is your future. This is you've got gold. And one of my mottos around dynamic duos is that I help couples in business navigate the challenges of living, loving, and working together, because sometimes you just want to strangle your other half. But it's about understanding where those challenges are. Now, there's a lot of value in the book, way above and beyond, because I go into, you know, male and female energies and priorities and love languages and personalities and all sorts of different things in the book. So there are some sample pages of the book in there as well that you can have a look at. Look, you know, I want to leave you on this particular client case story, because this is funny. So here's the back to front of we all want to be happy and we all need to learn and grow. So someone goes into the psychologist and they sit down and they go blah, 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 blah. And the psychologist is like, oh, this is very interesting. This is very complex. And you know, there's a lot of value in psychologists, but I find this irony quite interesting and quite funny, because as the psychologist is learning, they're happy, you see? And so they're kind of exploring. So sometimes we overcomplicate stuff. Okay. I had this guy come in and he had his parents were from Eastern Europe, and he'd come out to Australia when he was very young, and he'd grown up with this intense fear of poverty because his parents came out with $5, you know, the old European way of life. And he'd grown up with this intense fear of poverty. And as soon as I met him for the first time, I went, I see you, I get you, I know where you're at, you're okay, you're all good. We'll fix it, don't worry about it. Within 3 sessions, I said 15 minutes or less, we can get rid of that fear of poverty, intense fear of poverty, which psychologists label as complex intergenerational trauma. We can get rid of that 15 minutes or less, no problems. And he looks at me and he goes, you're a weirdo, Julie. Of course, don't worry about it. You know, when we got to that point and I said, are you ready? He said, let's do it. Because this intense fear of poverty had been impacting his relationships, his business decisions, his family life, his focus, his whole self-worth and value around who he was, right? Within 3.5 minutes, we had disarmed that trigger, that it was gone. And he sat there absolutely astounded, kind of laughing, actually, going, I cannot find the person that I was a few minutes ago. That is incredible. And I've watched these transformations and it's just brilliant. It's just beautiful. I've been doing this for 20 years. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I want to help support as many people as I possibly can. And psychology is not all that simple. There are BPDs, there's bipolar, there's ADHDs, there's schizophrenics, there's real mental illness, okay? But in my 2 years as founder of Crest Point Psychology and Crest Point Wellbeing Centre and practice manager there, over the last 2 years, I would say 80% of the people that walk through the front door don't need a mental health care plan. They actually just need the foundations to living. They need to feel okay to give those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle back that don't belong to them. They need to recognize when they're out of balance and be able to have a partner that supports them to get back into balance. And we need to understand those ground rules, because these are the rules for us living, right? These are the rules for us, and how we interact with other people is so important around how we look after ourselves as well. So, questions. Shall I pause the sharing for a minute? Come back to me. How do I stop? I'll stop sharing.
You can stop sharing, yeah. That was amazing. that was amazing, Julie.
I'm really passionate about it. I love sharing with people, and especially tradies, because their self-worth sometimes go and it's our job as the wives to kind of boost them back up again, and sometimes we're feeling exhausted and we're going, but hang on, what about me? So yeah, this is all around relationships and how do we bring that back together, and that's the glue.
Yeah, completely. And I think that, you know, it's something that is so needed, like you said, in the group. You see it a lot coming through, you know, that balance is off. You can sort of see tradies struggling, particularly that we were talking about with coronavirus, and you know, all that stuff bubbles to the surface, and it's sort of, I think tradies.
Look, in the Tradie Wives group, there's a lot of great legal advice, there's a lot of great accounting advice, there's a lot of great business consulting advice and strategy advice and marketing and all these sorts of things. There's a lot of great advice around that, which is fantastic, and kudos to those people, happy to work with them. But I'm talking about the emotional toll it takes on us as individuals, right? Because that's where we become burnt out. That's where we become exhausted. And those little we're operating at this level all the time, right? All the time. We don't even get to here to go, I can relate. You know, like, I've got it. I've got this. We've got it under control. We're all good. We're on track. We're succeeding. 1 millimeter shift in thinking is sometimes all it takes to go, why was I worried?
Yeah, completely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what it all comes down to.
And I think obviously the tradies have a hard time actually getting to that point, you know. They're always taught to just not deal with your problems, shove it in, like you were saying, the springs in the box, just keep their hand on top of it.
Absolutely. And they're guys, so they're not allowed to cry and they're not allowed to talk to their emotions. And you know what guys do? They talk to other guys about shit, about motorbikes and cars and blah, blah, blah. So it's funny because I actually ride motorbikes myself. So I've created on Facebook the MH&M, which is mental health and motorcycles. So it's SEQ, mental health and motorcycles. It's a positive mental health motorcycle riding community. So even if there's tradies out there who ride motorbikes and they want to come along and they want to be able to get on the bike and talk with other guys in an environment where they're not being shit on, they're not being bagged out, they're not being ridiculed, they're allowed to just be them. And I actually lead mental health rides, mental health social support rides. So we just go for a ride and think and be in the bush and admire the scenery, and we go for lunch and have a beer and chat, and you know, so and I'll put some videos up. I'll share some videos and stuff like that, you know, stuff like that. So if there's tradies out there that ride motorbikes, bring them along to a safe space where they can actually just, you know, chat about nothing, but be okay to be okay, not be okay,
and not feel threatened, and just like you said,
yeah.
Just had one question came through in that,
Yeah.
and it was, how do we know when it's time to go our separate ways in business? So I suppose, yeah, it's knowing when to
Uh,
do your own thing.
Yeah, and look, that's really important. So I've been married twice, okay, and I've never had an acrimonious relationship breakdown. I've always done it amicably. I never went through court with my, and this comes down to actually understanding the bigger picture. Okay, so and the first relationship was I had two kids, and we were in business together. The business is kind of okay, so it was a franchise, and it was making zero money. So I'm, trying to hold the pennies together and build the business and keep the kids, and and he's accusing me of all sorts of weird shit, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. You've got to know yourself. Okay, so that's the first step. And we talk about clarity in the book. Who am I? What do I really want? Okay, what makes me happy for a start? What doesn't make me happy? Like, we want to keep life simple, right? So do what makes you happy. Don't do what doesn't make you happy. The problem is, and this is what I see with most people, most individuals, is we've been taught you should do that, but you want to do that, right? So you go, the brain's going this way and heart's going that way, right? So we're out of alignment. And before we even walk out the door, we're like, and we've got this internal war going on, right? We've got to stop that first. We've got to stop our own internal war. I should do that, but I want to do that. Okay. And so which one wins? To bring ourselves back into alignment, do what makes you happy. Don't do what doesn't make you happy. Okay. So then you go, but hang on a minute. I don't want to go to Christmas because it's full of shit and there's family and there's, and we have arguments and and all those. But I do want to meet with, Auntie Jean, and I haven't seen her in a year, and I only get to see her at Christmas time. So I do want to go to Christmas. Okay. Here's another story, which will give a little bit of context to it. So I had a guy come in and he's like, oh, I'm 50 years old and we're building this house and I've got to take out this massive mortgage and I don't want to take it out. And he's going off his nuts. And I turned around and said, hang on a minute. May I ask you a question? So just to give some context around it, they had an old house on the block. They removed the old house. They're renting until they build the new house. So 12 months in renting and building a new house, but he's got this massive mortgage to go with it. And I said to him, let me ask you a question. Do you want the house? And he goes, I don't want the freaking mortgage and blah, 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 blah. And I said, stop. That's not the question that I asked, right? So this is around clarity of the questions that you're going to ask yourself, okay? Because at the end of the day, you are the only person that needs to know the answer to those questions, right? I can ask the question, but the answer is irrelevant to me because it's not my life. It's not my journey. I'm only helping support your journey, which is why you'll see my logo is actually like a hand with a globe in it, right? So I can come in and go, you should do this, you should do this, you should do. It's not helpful in business because you're going, well, that's not applicable to me. So I have the hand like this. How can I help support you? This is your journey. I can lift you up. I can provide you that foundation, but your journey is your journey. This is your world, right? I'm supporting it. Right. So I can ask you the question, but the answer is irrelevant to me. It's only relevant to you. Okay. So the first thing is, do you want the house? And he says, well, my wife wants answered. Again, not the question I asked. Do you want the house? And he said, well, yeah, I want to live in a nice house. Excellent. Right. Can you get the house without the mortgage? Well, no. Do you want the mortgage? Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So sometimes it's about breaking that down so that we don't get overwhelmed with what's going on in here or what's going on in here. Right. So sometimes the very specific questions provides clarity around, and this comes down to that 1 millimeter shift in thinking, right? Does he want the house? Well, I want to live in a nice house. Do you have to build the house? Right. Can you build the house without the mortgage? No. Do you want the mortgage? Well, yeah, I do, because I want that to get that to go there. Do you see what I mean? So it then gives clarity around that picture, that jigsaw puzzle of the picture on the front of the box, right? And then we know, well, that's a me piece of the puzzle, right? And then we have to look at, well, why didn't I do that sooner? And then there's a whole lot of other emotional stuff. See, one trigger might, it's I don't know if you're I look at those cartoons, you know, where they've got the little mouse with the jumper on, you pull the thread and the thing goes, take it. That's it.
Yeah.
And you're pulling on it and it goes, but what starts the trigger is not what the core issue is. Okay, so you have to be able to identify where's the core issue, because that's where the gold is. That's where the value is, to go, you know what? I don't need to be anxious anymore. I don't need to be stressed about that anymore. I don't need to feel undervalued, because you know what? I already value myself. I know the value of me. Okay, and sometimes we don't ask those questions. I have people come into my rooms and I sit down and I'm consulting with them and I go, so what do you want? And they go, excuse me? I said, what do you want? What makes you happy? And they go, I don't know. I've never asked myself that question before. And I go, how old are you? And they go, oh, I'm 56. And I go, so you've lived 56 years on the face of the earth and you've never asked yourself what you want? Oh, no, I didn't think I was allowed to. I thought I had to look after everybody else first, right? Again, it's like the jug and you're pouring this water, and it's overflowing. If this was my jug and I'm overflowing, cup, I can fill 100 cups out of my overflow. See, this is what I'm doing. This is my overflow. This takes nothing away from who I am as a person, right? And who wins? Everybody in Tradie Wives, everybody on the webinar, all my family, all my friends, all my relatives, all my clients, all the people that, even my worst enemy, if they truly ask me for help, sure, here it is. That's my overflow. That's my help. But I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to take the lesson away from you, because you won't become a better person if I do that. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So it's a matter of shifting our thinking and actually getting a whole new perspective on seeing that there are multiple points to the intersection. Which one do I don't want to be stuck on one point, right? I don't want to be stuck over here going, yeah, there's definitely a cat, but none of them can see a cat. I'm the one who's, do you see what I mean? But where am I going wrong? Yeah. So our most important step is to go, what am I doing to make my life difficult first off? Yeah. Do I really need to do that? Well, no. Why am I doing that? To make somebody else happy. Okay, well, you're making somebody else happy at the sacrifice of yourself. And you know what? You can pour as much as you want into them and you're going to turn around 10 years later and they're still not going to be happy. Do you see what I mean? Because you can't make someone happy. You can't make someone angry if they don't want to be angry, you see? So, and I guess, does that answer your question? Yeah. At the end of the day, the person who knows when it's time to walk away is when you know in your heart of hearts you've done everything possible for that person and they're not getting it. They're not getting the lesson. They're not learning. They're not able to move with you. So it's like a journey, right? And again, look, I'm sorry, I don't mean to go on, but I could do this for days and weeks and months and years. So here's the thing. In the book, I talk about an experience. If someone was to say to you, buy this business, you're going to have no sleep, you're going to be working your fingers to the bone, you're going to get 50 cents, you're going to get robbed, by the way, someone's going to come in the middle of the night and take all your money, and you're going to have some, go on, take it, and we're going to sell it to you for $100,000. You're going to go, no, thanks very much, I don't want that. No, we never do that. We always go in with the fantasy. Right? We go into a business going, I'm going to make a lot of money and we're going to be fun and we're going to go on holidays. We're going to have staff run the business and we're going to retire at 35 and sail big yachts up the river. We all have that fantasy. And this is why we tell our kids fairy stories, right? Because we want them to believe in the hope. Why do we do that? I mean, reality is not even like that. And the end's really bad because it's a shitty bit. That's the divorce. That's where, but every experience follows the same thing. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And however long that experience is, could be a day, a week, a year, a month, 10 years, 100 years, it doesn't matter. The length of the experience is irrelevant. It'll follow the same pattern. We have the honeymoon, the fantasy. Oh, we're going to make a lot of money, right? And then you get into the reality, the 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, whatever, right? it's hard, we argue, we don't have sex anymore, he doesn't even look at me, he swears at me, he doesn't talk, he just works all the time, he doesn't have time with the kids, we can't go away on holidays, we don't have money, the clients don't pay. All of that stuff's the reality. And then at the end, when it becomes very overwhelming and too much, you go, I'm done, I'm pulling the pin, I'm out, right? And that's okay, because that's just the end of the experience, right? But what did you learn out of it? Right? Because this is what the experience is designed to do. We want to be happy. So we go into the experience to find happiness. And guess what? When we don't find it and we don't learn, people come into the psychologist and go, why is this happening to me? Right? Or the therapist in my case, because I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a business consultant, right? And I've worked with people and I've done this, and I'm a well-being advisor, life coach, business mentor, whatever. Right? But I asked the question. And they come into me and they go, why is this happening to me, Julie? And I go, blah, 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 blah. This is the information. Oh, now I got it. Oh, thanks, Julie. I'm happy now. Off they go. That's it. That's all. So be happy, learn and grow. There's only two things every human being needs. That's it, right? That we will do the stuff we do to try and find happiness. And when we don't get it, we need to learn. Why are we not learning, right? Why are we not happy? Okay, when we ask ourselves, why are we not happy? Because I feel disrespected, or I feel used, or I feel hurt, or I feel whatever those things are. That's the core issue for me. Oh, okay, well, learn, right? Now I've got the lesson, now off I go, right? And I say to my clients, I need you out of here in 5 sessions, right? Because I've got 1 million people lining up behind you, right? I don't want you to come to a therapist for the next 10 years. Sure, I'll make a lot of money out of it, but that's not helping you, right? That's not helping you. If you don't learn the tools to go and apply to your life, no matter what happens, right? How can you share that with your kids, right? How can you share that with your friends, right? These are simple things. We all want the same 2 things. It's really, keep life simple, right? Overcomplicated, oversimplified, balance is somewhere in the middle, right? So yes, there will be times when you'll question what you're doing, why you're doing it. Is it really worth it, right? Is it really worth it? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, look, what I'd say for whoever's asked that question, feel free to jump online, book a free consult, and I can give you some more clarity around the specifics. If I have some context about, how long have you suffered enough, what's the ins and outs, we could be talking infidelity, we could be not, we could be talking gambling, we could be not, I don't know what your specific situation is, but you will know if you stopped and you actually asked yourself in your heart of hearts, am I done? If you go like that, then you're not. Because you have to think about it, right? If you go, yep, I'm done, I know you're out, right? And I know, and that's okay. But what we want to do is get value out of the experience so that we don't fall into the same pattern again. Like Groundhog Day, if you've ever seen the movie Groundhog Day, and a lot of young people haven't, but if you watch that movie Groundhog Day, he falls in the same hole again and again and again and again. And one day he goes, oh, there's a hole there. Now I can step over it, because you've got to recognize the hole, right? If you don't recognize the hole, you keep falling into it, right? We don't want you to keep falling into it. And I've got squillions of stories. I've got 20 years worth of value that I've been giving to clients and people and developments and stuff like that. I'm pulling together a whole lot of testimonials, but if you go onto Google and you look at Crestpoint Psychology, you'll see, oh, Julie's wonderful, all that sort of stuff, 5-star review, whatever. I mean, it's not about bragging. It's about just, if you want some qualifications around that, I don't want to tell you how good I am, because that means nothing. It's what value people get out of it, and I want to be able to provide value, especially to anyone on Tradie Wives. So I'll shut up now.
No, that's awesome, and I think you're right. Like, you need to know the context. Yeah, you need to go on context line. But yeah, we're going to send this replay out either this afternoon or tomorrow, see how we go. But we're going to send it out. going to have all your contact details in there. If you do want to book in with Julie, her details will be there. And as I said, we're going to be reading your books next in the book club. So if you're not a member, join up, because we'll be going.
Let me know what you need. If you need a digital copy, send it out, and then
amazing
to do that.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And thank you again. That was so helpful. And
my greatest pleasure. Look, I'm willing to share as much as I can. As I said, it's just my overflow. I'll talk for days and weeks and months and years on this subject because I'm really super passionate about it.
Which is awesome.
Let's help everyone. Yeah,
I love that.
Thank you so much, Verity. Thanks
so
everyone.
Much, Julie.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.